2 Samuel chapter 2. In this chapter, we see David anointed as king of Judah, the southern kingdom, verses 1 to 4. Then are given two episodes of David's attentiveness to the northern kingdom of Israel. One is a peaceable act of friendship, verses 4 to 7, and the other is an act of confrontation and hostility. The second incident accounts for the personal hostility that later resulted in Abner's death and the disintegration of Ishbosheth's throne. David anointed king over Judah, verses 1 to 4. Verse 1. In the course of time, David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I go up to one of the towns of Judah?" he asked. The Lord said, "Go up." David asked, "Where shall I go?" "To Hebron," the Lord answered. Saul was dead. His son Jonathan was also dead. The Philistines had defeated the Israelites. So now the Israelites had no king. This was a dangerous time for the nation of Israel. At this important juncture of affairs, David's first action is to know the divine will. His inquiry was doubtless made through the high priest Abiathar, as in 1 Samuel 23, 9-10. The answer directed him to go to Hebron. It is this dependence on the providence of God which was the key to success in David's life. Hebron is situated in a valley among the hills of southern Judea at a height of nearly 3,000 feet above the Mediterranean Sea. It stood about 19 miles southwest of Jerusalem and 27 miles northeast of Ziklag. It was in Hebron that Abraham and Sarah were buried. Genesis chapter 23 and chapter 25 verses 7 to 10. David took his wives and men who were with him, each with his family, and they settled in Hebron and its towns. Verse 4. Then the men of Judah came to Hebron, and there they anointed David king over the tribe of Judah. The leaders had to choose a new king. The men from the tribe of Judah knew the great soldier David and his army, and they trusted him. So they anointed David as their king. Samuel had anointed David as king of Israel many years before, 1 Samuel 16, 1-13. We do not know whether the people of Judah knew about this, but they chose the man that God had already chosen. David became king of just one tribe at this time. He did not become the king of the whole of Israel until chapter 5. David shows his thankfulness to Jabesh Gilead, verses 4 to 7. The town of Jabesh Gilead was 80 miles north of Hebron. It was at the east side of the river Jordan. This town had a strong connection with Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 11. Their men showed kindness to Saul and buried him. 1 Samuel 31, 11-13. David took special pains to solemnly recognize and thank the people of Jabesh Gilead, and also to express his sorrow over Saul's death to those residents. 1. He took the initiative of contacting them. Verse 5a. 2. He paid them a sincere compliment. 5b. 3. He reminded them that he was now anointed king over Judah. Verse 7. 4. He offered a treaty of friendship. Verses 6 to 7. David knew that he needed brave men like these to secure and advance his kingdom. Perhaps David hoped that the other tribes would choose him as king also. So he tried to make friends with as many people as possible. Ishbosheth's coronation over Israel, verses 8 to 11. Verse 8. Meanwhile, Abner, son of Ner, the commander of Saul's army, had taken Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. Mahanaim was only 16 miles south of Jabesh Gilead in Transjordan. Verse 9. He made him king over Gilead, Ashuri, and Jezreel, and also over Ephraim, Benjamin, and all Israel. Gilead was the land beyond Jordan and included the tribes of Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. Ashurites were the tribe of Asher in the extreme north. Jezreel was the extensive valley bordering on the central tribes of Zebulun, Issachar, and Naphtali. Abner was Saul's cousin. 1 Samuel 14:15, and the commander of Saul's armies for many years. Ishbosheth was 40 years old when he became king. He was born in the year that Saul was made king, for Saul reigned 40 years. Acts 13:41. Ishbosheth means man of shame. He may have been Ishvi of 1 Samuel 14:49, 1 Chronicles 7:30, 1 Samuel 31:2, since this was the only surviving son of Saul. He must have been a cowardly person since he did not go for war. Abner was working to install Ishbosheth as Saul's successor so that he could be the real power behind the throne of a weak king. He was simply doing what was customary in the ancient Near East, that his son would succeed his father, and in the process securing his own future. Abner put his personal preferences and cultural precedent over God's will. Consequently, Abner's act fueled conflict between the northern and the southern inhabitants of the land. Ishbosheth reigned only 2 years over the northern kingdom Israel, and David ruled 7.5 years over the southern kingdom Judah. The conflict between Abner and Joab, where Abner is defeated, verses 12-13. Verse 12. Abner son of Ner, together with the men of Ishbosheth son of Saul, left Mahanaim and went to Gibeon. Joab and David's men met at the pool of Gibeon. The pool of Gibeon lies about 3 miles northwest of Gibeah. The pool is a cylindrical shaft 37 feet in diameter and 35 feet deep. Its 5 feet wide spiral stairway, which winds downward around the inside wall of the pool in the clockwise direction, continues below the floor level to an additional depth of 45 feet. At this pool of Gibeon, the forces of Ishbosheth and David met for a peace conference. Verse 13. One group sat on one side of the pool and one group on the other side. Hand-to-hand fight between Abner and Joab, where Abner is defeated. Verses 14-17. Verse 14. Then Abner said to Joab, "Let's have some of the young men get up and fight hand-to-hand in front of us." "All right, let them do it," Joab said. Abner started the peace talks by suggesting a kind of contest between a select group of young men from the two groups. This was a fascinating confrontation between Abner and Joab. The play of the young men was actually a gladiatorial contest in lieu of a full-pitched battle. 12 representatives from each army was chosen so that an all-out war would not be necessary. Then, the king of whichever group won the fight would rule all 12 tribes. Such a practice was the art of the ancient Near East. 1 Samuel 17:8-10. This diabolical play of the fight by championship, instead of terminating the matter, inflamed the fiercest passions of the two rival parties. Each man grabbed his opponent by the head and thrust his dagger into his opponent's side, and they fell down together. So that place in Gibeon was called Helkath Hazurim, or the field of rocks, because the dead mighty men stood like rocks, unmovable, upon the spot where they fought. A full battle followed anyway, because all the 24 contestants in the representative combat had fallen. Verse 17. The battle that day was very fierce, and Abner and the Israelites were defeated by David's men. Asahel, one of the sons of Zeruiah, chases Abner and is killed. Verses 18-23. Joab, Abishai, and Asahel were David's nephews, that is, the sons of David's sister Zeruiah. 1 Chronicles 2:16. Asahel was as fleet-footed as a wild gazelle. He was a gallant man and remarkably swift. Being desirous of the glory of killing Abner, the greatest man in Israel, Asahel pursued after Abner to kill him and finish the battle. Abner's question of concern to Asahel in verse 22, "Why should I strike you down? How could I look your brother Joab in the face?" was entirely justified because he knew for sure that Joab will make it his passion to avenge him for his brother's death that might go on for generations. Nevertheless, Asahel kept on chasing Abner. Abner warned Asahel twice to stop pursuing him and to fight with someone he might be able to defeat. Since Asahel would not stop chasing Abner, we see in verses 20 to 22 that Abner killed Asahel in self-defense. Asahel's swiftness, which he trusted so much upon, did him no service, but hastened his end. Verse 23. And every man stopped when he came to the place where Asahel had fallen and died. Asahel's pursuers, being so troubled and grieved at the death of their fallen comrade, stood transfixed in horror and had no power to proceed in the pursuit. Joab and Abishai, the other two sons of Zeruiah, pursue Abner. Verse 24. Many of David's soldiers stopped at the place of the death of Asahel, but Joab and Abishai continued to pursue Abner, no more for the cause of David, but to avenge the killing of their brother Asahel. A ceasefire called, verses 26 to 29. Verse 26. Abner called out to Joab, Must the sword devour forever? Don't you realize that this will end in bitterness? Abner appeals to Joab concerning the miserable consequences of a civil war. He knew that they were all Israelites. They were not enemies. But if they kept fighting each other, they would become enemies. Joab realized that this was a very good decision and agreed to this ceasefire, probably to both rest his exhausted army and to avoid a long, bloody civil war. So he blew a trumpet that told everybody to stop fighting. So both armies went home. Consequence of the battle where David's army is victorious, verses 30 to 32. This passage shows us how badly Abner's army was beaten. They lost 360 men. Joab's army lost 20. Verse 32. They took Asahel and buried him in his father's tomb at Bethlehem. Then Joab and his men marched all night and arrived at Hebron by daybreak. The bodies of the ordinary soldiers were probably buried on the spot. But on account of Asahel's position and near relationship to David, his body was carried to Bethlehem for burial in the sepulchre of his father. Joab, no doubt, spent the time at Gibeon, marched to Bethlehem the next day, and after burying his brother, hastened on to report himself to David at Hebron. Hebron was about 14 miles southwest of Bethlehem, that is about a 5-hour march. 2 Samuel chapter 2, questions and answers.